Okay, everybody, welcome back to the TV program. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart. Both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Tom Clancy's Clear and Present Danger. Now, this is, I don't know, book 4, 5, or 6 in the Jack Ryan universe. I've got two different versions here. Now, I've got hardcovers and paperbacks of all the Jack Ryan books. I will show you my hardcover collection here. It happens to be near the floor, but that's my entire Jack Ryan Tom Clancy universe collection right there of hardcovers. I've also got every single one of those books in mass market paperback in my closet. But I won't show you those because there's other things in my closet that I'd rather you not see. So let's talk about the covers. Book came out in 1989. And that's when I read it for the first time, 1989. In fact, in 1989 was the year I read a shit ton of... I started with The Cardinal of the Kremlin, and then I did Patriot Games, and God, there's like about 5 or 6 of them I read right in a row, and I loved them all. But this one was one of those. Let's talk about the covers first, because you know I love graphic design, and I love cover illustration, so let's give a closer look at the covers of both of these. This is the first printing hardcover. This is a mass market paperback. Nothing special about either one. I do think I favor this one more just because it's kind of got the gold look. It's got the embossed, I don't know, the black lettering is embossed. It's raised up a little bit, so it kind of makes it a little bit cooler. And the wraparound is just like a sharp looking book. The paperback is serviceable. It's kind of got no real color scheme to... Well, it's got the black and red. Well, it's got the red, white, and blue. Anyway, enough with the cover. Let's talk about a book. Opening scene. I remember reading this opening scene when I was younger in 1989 as just a young person. I remember reading the opening scene, and it's a very, very detailed description of the Oval Office, and I remember just drinking, 3 pages. We open up in the Oval Office, and Tom Clancy gives us 3 pages of details about every single thing that is in that Oval Office, along with its history and why it's there and who put it there and who gave it to what president at what time. It is an absolutely fascinating look at the way Tom Clancy writes. And if you can, then this is the thing. Many people don't like Tom Clancy because he writes so detailed. If he talks about an army tank, he describes every rivet and button on that army tank. If he talks about a machine gun, he describes every single mechanism of that machine gun. If he describes a nuclear submarine, you will get a detailed description of every single room and pipe and nuclear bomb that is in that submarine. And this one starts out no different, but with a detailed description of the Oval Office. And I personally find this stuff fascinating. It's why I love reading Tom Clancy. It's why he's my favorite thriller writer. He just gets the details right, and I love that. And it's interesting. And you learn a lot about the world, and I learned, for the second time, I learned a shit ton of stuff about the Oval Office that I had no idea it was about. Anyway, the second scene is a brutal scene of a murder that takes place on a yacht where some drug cartel dudes murder some other people that may or may not be involved in the drug trade. That is what this book is about, Clear and Present Danger. It is about our fight against drugs, our war on drugs. If you followed my reviews, I've reviewed several books that deal with this, one of which was J. Todd Scott's first novel. I can't remember the name of that. The more notable ones were the Don Winslow Cartel trilogy. The Power of the Dog, The Cartel, The Border. That's a trilogy based off of our failed war on drugs. that Don Winslow just wrote, within the last few years. This book was written in 1989, and it talks about the same exact things. Back in 1989, we were dealing with the same problem, this war on drugs that has been a failure, even since 1989 and prior to that, and it's still a failure now. It's a colossal failure. Tom Clancy saw it back then. J. Todd Scott saw it. Don Winslow saw it. Many thriller writers have written about this subject, about why are we trying to stop this never-ending trade of drugs. It's just like we do everything ass backwards, and Tom Clancy points that out. And there's a brutal, brutal opening scene just of the cartels and how brutal they can be, and how the Coast Guard has to find the ship, and they have to treat it as a crime scene and investigate every part of these murders. And the further into the ship, the further into the yacht they go, the more gruesome things they find, and it's just absolutely riveting and heart-pounding, and you're just like, why? And Tom Clancy asks that question over and over. Why are we fighting this pointless war? And me, if you know me, you know I've worked in law enforcement for a bit of time, especially at the Utah State Prison, and I've seen it's the pointlessness of the whole fucking endeavor. And it just makes me angry just talking about it, especially after I get done reading a book like this. I wanted to read this page here because it's just it really stuck out to me. It's not a page, it's more of just a sentence. And it's about the drug war. And so begins something that had not... Okay, let me start over. And so began something that had not quite begun, and would not end soon. And many people in many places moving off in directions and on missions which they all mistakenly thought they understood. Yeah, that's the whole drug war right there. Let me read that again. And so begins something that had not quite begun, and would not soon end, with many people in many places, moving off in directions and on missions which they all mistakenly thought they understood. That's the drug war in a nutshell. Everybody given missions that they think they understand, but they don't understand. They're just moving in clockwork, funhouse, nonsensical directions, and it never stops. So, this is the book where we get to meet Chavez, one of our main Jack Ryan characters. I don't even know if I may have mentioned that this is one of the Jack Ryan books. Jack Ryan thriller. I think it says there on the front. Yes, a Jack Ryan novel. Well, there's a lot of characters that float in and out of these Jack Ryan novels. And what do I got, like 30 of them? But Chavez is one of the main ones. He is the young Mexican gangster who decides the Mexican gangster life isn't for him. He joins the military, and he becomes a very, very good soldier in the military. And he is sent down into Colombia and into South America to stop some of these drug cartels and drug wars. And he starts to figure out how futile it is. We also get some points of view from the character Clark, who was introduced in Cardinal of the Kremlin, who is also one of our main Jack Ryan characters, and he is playing a part in this. And of course, Jack Ryan himself. And it's just full of treachery, betrayal, bad moves by our government. Tom Clancy does a great job in detailing how our military operates, how operations go down from the top command of the president and his counselors to the military chains of command, all the way down to the foot soldiers. I mean, we get how the president will make a decision and it will just get filtered through all these people down to the foot soldier. And Tom Clancy details all of those steps and how everything gets moved, all the moving pieces of that, and how different... It's like when you do the game where you whisper in someone's ear and then they have to whisper what you said into the next person's ear. And by the time you get around the room and everybody's whispered the thing into the ear, the whole fucking thing is meaningless. And it's not even originally what was intended. And The book is full of like treacherous interrogation scenes, which I think was the first time I had read anything like that. I mean, nowadays we get movies where enemies of the state are tortured all the time and things like that, and we just get that kind of thing. It's just a bloody book. It's one of the more interesting books that Tom Clancy wrote, because it's not necessarily one of these, hey, the Russians are going to bomb us with nuclear bombs. This is more of like, we're going to destroy ourselves from the inside out with drugs. I mean, America's appetite for drugs is raising havoc not only in our own cities, but it's making it things a billion times worse for the people who live down south of the border in Mexico and Colombia and Brazil, where these drugs are produced, where these cartels live, where these cartels torture savagely, bloody torture the citizens of these countries, and they have the government and the police wrapped around their finger. And that is why we have such here's the bottom line, and I believe this wholeheartedly, and this is the theme that Tom Clancy is trying to get across, and it was the same one that Don Winslow was trying to get across, is that America's appetite for these drugs is the reason these countries are struggling. If you think your drug use is not harming anybody, you are fucking moron. You are harming everybody that lives south of our border. Everybody. Your drug use is causing these cartels to torture and murder women and children. And we're failing as a people, as a government. Our government is failing us in stopping it, because it could. We could put it into it. There's a lot of different ways, and a lot of these ways are described in these books. And a lot of them are just like, hey, let's legalize the whole load of everything and just, let's stop. I don't know what the answer is. I just know whenever I read one of these books, I get frustrated. I get frustrated because I work in the prison system and I see what it does. I see the aftermath of a lot of this. Anyway, this is why I read books. This book here is one of the reasons why I love reading, is because it forces me to think about stuff on the planet that is happening to us. 1989, we're still dealing with the same bullshit. 1989, and before that, still haven't scratched or dented the surface on the war on drugs, because we've got government officials that are governing with their heads up their asses when it comes to this subject. Tom Clancy points it out. Don Winslow points it out. So many people have pointed it out in different novels here and there. Anyway, I get myself worked up. This is just a dynamite book. One of the reasons I love reading is because I like to get worked up. I like to feel things about the stuff I've read. And Tom Clancy can oftentimes bring that emotion out of me. So I give this a 10 out of 10. It is one of the best thrillers you're ever going to read. And it makes you think about the world in which we live.